What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, wouldn't you know it, we're going into 2026, and now there's a lot of talk and discussion around video game prices going up again. And in fact, it's not looking very good currently when it comes to the hardware side, and even some talk now around Microsoft raising their prices again. Actually, pretty soon. We'll go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be taking a look at a situation that's kind of funny when you look at it, with Nintendo dealing with user-created content in Kirby Air Riders. Now it's actually backfiring on them a bit. And we'll also be talking about PlayStation 3 emulation, and really why we're not really seeing it much on things like the PlayStation 5, but maybe there's room for the PlayStation 6, all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you'd like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're gonna start today with a couple of remakes. One we already know about, but the other one is technically unannounced, and that's Assassin's Creed Black Flag. It's been rumored for quite some time, and it kind of makes sense for Ubisoft's perspective because they make a lot of Assassin's Creed games, and they, I'm sure, would like to go back and keep doing different remakes and stuff. So Black Flag seems like it's set up here nicely to release actually pretty soon. Now, this is coming from Insider Gaming. We can see this over on their website, saying they've learned that the yet announced Assassin's Creed remake is set to launch before March 31st, 2026. Now, they are pointing to a slide here in the report from Ubisoft, which we'll touch on their delayed earnings here later on in the show, but they have that unannounced title tile all the way to the right. And Insider Gaming does go on to say that, to their understanding, it's scheduled to release the week of March 23rd, so getting in there right at the end of the month that week. And again, Black Flag is looked at as one of the top tier Assassin's Creed games for many people. It's like Assassin's Creed 2, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Those are usually the big ones. So again, it makes sense for Ubisoft to go back and remake this, touch it up somewhat when it comes to modernizing controls or maybe streamlining some stuff, quality of life, for example, being added in. But as long as they don't mess with the formula too much or mess the game up outright, this should be an easy game for them to sell and an easy one for most people to recommend. So here's hoping that Ubisoft doesn't, Ubisoft the thing. Also, speaking of Ubisofting things, remember Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time remake, and how that was shown and it didn't go over great online, and then it got pulled back, and we've been waiting to hear about this ever since. It's been a bit now, but it seems like we are going to be seeing it here pretty soon, and the game's coming out sooner than a lot of people were expecting. So we can see this. This is once again over on Insider Gaming. Again, touching on some of their Ubisoft sources here, saying that according to those sources close to the game, Prince of Persia Sands Time Remake is scheduled to release in mid-January 2026. So it seems like we are, less than 2 months away from this game coming out. So the sources believe it's likely that the next look at the game will come at the Game Awards on December 11th, 2025, where an official release date could be revealed. They say could be, but at that point, you'd be about a month away from it releasing. So unless they reveal the release date before that date on December 11th for the Game Awards, I figure it's going to be there. And I'm really curious to see how this thing turns out, what they changed apart from, there'll be a lot of comparisons from the original trailer to the new one. So I'm really looking forward to this being announced, and it should hopefully be a good showing, as Ubisoft did move over some of their, we'll say, stronger or top talent, top studio over to this to work on it and hopefully give a 3D Prince of Persia game a chance. Oh, and if you wanted to try out Metroid Prime 4 now, you can do so, as many different retailers have some of these demo stations updated with Metroid Prime 4. And there are videos all over the internet right now, like this one, where the person's kind of showing it off at one of the kiosks. And this one reminds me of one at Walmart. So as they can say, the Metroid Prime 4 demo at Walmart, that's very similar to one that I have near me. So I thought about going out and checking this Metroid Prime 4 demo out, because we've only really ever seen it through compression on YouTube. And a lot of people are saying it looks really good in person here on a HD display like this. So just letting you guys know, if you're out and about and you're near a Best Buy, a Walmart, and I think Target are the ones that I've seen people bring up. Might be worth stopping in just to see Metroid Prime 4 and give it a try. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with video game prices, hardware components, and shortages, because there is spiking demand right now that's happening on the PC side, and many people are noticing this now more than ever, where, I mean, really weeks ago this was happening, but now it's being brought to like the forefront and everyone's going, wow, 64 gigabytes of DDR5 is just about the same price as a PlayStation 5 console. That's where we are right now, which is, it's so strange since, I mean, years ago, RAM was very cheap. For the longest time, it was something you had to think about when you built a PC, but when you considered expensive parts, it wasn't RAM. You'd usually think of your processor and your video card. Now it's like, oh, okay, yeah, processor, video card, whatever. What, RAM? Whoa, what happened here? And because of this, it seems like something that is also going to be spilling over into the video game side here for consoles very soon. In fact, right now, Microsoft is being pointed out as being maybe the bearer of bad news when it comes to console prices going up soon. Now, this we can see is over on Eurogamer, and they are transcribing Moore's Law is dead, warning that Microsoft as partners that ongoing RAM shortages and soaring costs could lead to higher prices for its customers, saying, quote, Microsoft didn't plan ahead at all, apparently. If you still want an Xbox for some reason at their current pricing, those prices could go up soon, or supply could just entirely dry up because multiple sources of mine have apparently been warned by sales reps at Microsoft that this is going to affect the Xbox Series consoles very soon. Sooner rather than later. And this is not shocking to me at all to consider the fact that consoles would have to go up in price if the demand continues to spike pricing around the RAM or NAND flash, as a lot of that's being used currently for contracts with data centers because AI is continuing to ramp up. There's so much interest in it. The frenzy is just going wild right now, where all these companies throwing billions and billions, almost trillions of dollars even, at this whole thing, and it's a race right now for super intelligence over the next couple of years. So much so that, I mean, it almost feels like they're willing to sacrifice the rest of the market to try to get there. They're talked around putting data centers under the sea, putting data centers in space. It's some wild stuff. But where does that leave us? Well, if, say, you're Microsoft and you have an Xbox Series that has quite a bit of RAM in it, I mean, think about it, it has 16 gigabytes. Well, you have to start looking around and go, wow, the pricing is getting very expensive to build these things because of the DRAM shortage. So the price is going to go up. And, well, if you're not someone who maybe stockpiled a lot of these RAM chips, you're going to be left sitting there going, well, we just have to raise prices. Or maybe you just don't really order a lot of them. That's another avenue, and is something that's kind of being mentioned here. Microsoft isn't exactly running around like, oh, buy the Xbox Series console, you gotta get it. They're kind of going, hey, if you got Windows, you're kind of good, right? They've been pushing the Xbox Play Anywhere stuff, and even recently they did release that Xbox full screen experience for PC through like the Preview Insider program, and people are loading that up. So they're trying to at least get to gamers any way possible, despite a lot of the increases in hardware prices. Now, it's worth noting, this is something that should be affecting Sony and even Nintendo, as it appears that mobile RAM is also something that's going to be coming up. But Sony had another strategy here. This, once again, we can see, transcribed on Eurogamer from Moore's Law is Dead, saying, from what I've heard, Sony planned ahead, bought up gobs of RAM near the bottom of the pricing, and thus they should be fine for months. They have plenty of GDDR6, at least that's what I'm told. Prices could go up eventually. I can see that happening next year, but there is a reason Sony is cutting PlayStation 5 pricing for Black Friday. They aren't just doing this as some extreme move or because sales are bad. They can afford to do it. Apparently, they are not worried about the RAM shortage, at least in the short to midterm. And that's all well and good with the strategy of just buying up a ton of GDDR6 when the market was much lower than it is now, but I don't think this AI boom is gonna all of a sudden disappear in the next 6, 7, 8 months. I think that's something that'll be ongoing for at least the next 1.5 to 2 years, into, at that point, almost going up to 2028, and then who knows what the world will look like then. But I think this is something that even Sony will get to kind of the end of the rope with their supply and go, what do we do? Because you've seen Microsoft be the first one just to go, we're raising prices. Multiple times we have to because of component cost. And Nintendo held out a bit. They tried to figure it out. Sony also did the same thing. They were waiting for a while, but eventually they both had to go, well, we're raising prices somewhere. Nintendo looked around and went, okay, well, accessories and amiibos and all this stuff. And a lot of it, yes, the tariff related and stuff, but component pricing, all that is going up. So Sony, while they might be good, as mentioned here, for the next 6-7 months, we'll say, going into next year, if things don't get worked out when it comes to RAM supply, I mean, eventually you gotta bid more money, and that means the whole thing's gonna cost more. So I'm just letting people know now, brace for impact when it comes to some of the pricing around consoles, because we could once again be seeing a price increase, this time in year 6 of a generation. And that is very weird to say, because we're so used to prices going down for game systems throughout the generation, but we're just in different times right now. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo dealing with a situation in Kirby Air Riders. All right, so in Kirby Air Riders, you can make your custom machines, sort of, and they can be shared online, almost in a setup of you create it with like decals, and then you post it online for people to buy with just the currency in the game. There's no microtransactions that's attached to this, but as people buy these things, the prices go up. All right, so if you see something that's very expensive, you know, oh wow, this must be a pretty popular item that people are buying like crazy on like the digital storefront within Kirby Air Riders. Well, Nintendo had to deal with, we'll just take a look. This is over on Automaton Media, who says an immensely popular custom flight warp star designed to look like Chef Kawasaki wearing a micro bikini has disappeared from Kirby Air Riders machine market. And this was noted by many people over on X and other social media platforms, where you see images of this machine. And apparently Nintendo decided to take this down. And wouldn't you know it, what do you think happened? Of course, a bunch of people then started making more of them, and it sort of that Streisand effect of maybe there was one, and I get the idea of, hey, it's shooting to the top of the charts because everyone's buying it. It's funny, it's a meme, it's a micro bikini thing with the warp starred Kawasaki. Sure, I get it. But Nintendo just made it so that there are a ton of them now showing up. And funny enough, it seems like if the bikini itself is large enough, Nintendo won't actually take it down. Like this one here is apparently fine. And it's humorous to me to think that there is somebody at Nintendo right now, I'm thinking like Nintendo headquarters in Japan, who is looking at the screen and measuring out and deciding where the line is for how thin the bikini like can be before they have to take it down. Nintendo's dealt with user creation stuff. The Smash Brothers thing where the stages were being made was off the wall insane, some of the stuff. Splatoon has gone through this because they allowed people to draw, and that was kind of a mistake on Nintendo's part. I mean, look, the idea being, hey, we'll give you creative tools and you're going to have people that take some liberties, we'll say, with it. And not like how Nintendo had to deal with the whole swap note thing a while ago where they went, I mean, they really panicked. And rightfully so to a degree with some of those situations. But here, it was just kind of people having fun with it. Like, oh, here's a meme. Let's see how far we can push the boundaries. And Nintendo kind of let them know where the line was. But they do have one that's up now, and now many other ones, just because of that Streisand effect. So Nintendo, well, it kind of backfired on them. And now there's all kinds of bikini Chef Kawasaki's to pick from. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation 3 emulation on the PlayStation 5 and then maybe the PlayStation 6. This is something that's come up quite a bit because right now, the way that you play PlayStation 3 games on the PS5 is just through streaming. And it's not great since we do kind of envision the idea of the PlayStation 5 or maybe eventually the PS6 being able to fix a lot of these PS3 games, as in the frame rate's better because it wasn't a great generation for frame rate, and the resolution and just the way it looks now on 4K sets. We see what's happening with the PlayStation 2, and that's through implicit conversions, so we kind of have these ideas as to what could happen with a pretty cool library for the PlayStation 3. Well, Ryan had an interview with the CEO at Implicit Conversions and did ask about the idea of PS3 games. This from the CEO saying, "We believe it's feasible. I don't think anyone expects it to run on a Switch or a PS4, but maybe PS5 and certainly PS6 whenever that comes out. We do feel it's technically possible. It's just a matter of devoting the time, energy, and resources to it." Now, he does go on to say that the PS3, kind of a back burner project for their team because, go figure, the world runs on money. So what do? You look towards projects that are maybe more in demand, saying, we're working with a third party to help us with this, so we have a base to work off of. It's a back burner project for us that we're investigating over time. To be transparent, PS2 is more of a priority for us just because of the demand, but it's a fun project for our engineers. And I like the idea of, okay, look, at least Implicit Conversions is working on the idea of PS3 emulation, but the discussion has been, okay, the PS4 probably can't handle it with those Jaguar cores. They mentioned the Switch, but yeah, obviously that's probably not going to do it either. So you look at the PS5, there are videos right now of people who have managed to get sort of the APU itself and through other means to be able to then load PS3 games, and they do work. But then you think of some of the constraints Sony will put on it when it comes to RAM allocation for the OS and what's available, say, for these games and stuff. And it does make you wonder a bit there. But the PS6, we believe, will be quite a bit stronger, at least on the CPU side, and that's usually where these consoles tend to falter. In fact, I wouldn't mind if we get to the PS6, and the big jump, quote-unquote, is that the CPU and the GPU are more in line than ever before, and you can do some really cool stuff like more difficult emulation, say, for the PlayStation 3, but it's no wonder that the PS2 is their primary focus right now because there's a vast library of games, tons of publishers that may be interested in getting their games to come back and then resell and also even sell to Sony for PlayStation Plus. So if you're Implicit Conversions, for what you know right now and what is possible, you're going to devote a lot of your time to the PlayStation 2 library, and as they say, put the PS3 on the back burner as kind of an R&D project. So at the very least, it's good to hear that they are working on it in some capacity, maybe for the future with the PlayStation 6. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Ubisoft once again. This time around, that situation with their delayed earnings, and it was very weird. People were trying to figure out what was happening with maybe the potential of them announcing that they'd just been outright acquired, but that wasn't the case. No, appears to have been some weird accounting error that made them go back to the books and I guess rewrite and figure things out. Anyway, we can see this. This is over on Reuters saying the delay can be explained by the need to restate last year's accounts and above all, to validate the Tencent deal, which may still have had to satisfy a few conditions since a covenant on a credit line had been exceeded. This is from analyst Corentin Marty, okay, just kind of discussing this. Ubisoft said it was addressing the breach through an early repayment of around 286 million euros or $330 million in outstanding loans using proceeds from Tencent's 1 billion euro investment in Vantage Studios, a subsidiary managing the group's 3 flagship franchises. So here's the thing, right? Because it says the repayment would help reduce its debt pile, which stood at 1.15 billion euros at the end of September. What it sounds like is Ubisoft had their books set up in a certain way, maybe looked a bit more attractive for, say, Tencent or whoever else to move into, invest, or acquire, or as they've done, kind of split off into a subsidiary that could then be basically sold to Tencent, and they had to rework their books to be more up to code, you can say. So yeah, accounting error, okay, we'll go with that, Ubisoft. Some were saying, oh, they cooked the books. I mean, look, a lot of big companies will play around with numbers, play around with balance sheets to try to get in under certain tax codes, and Ubisoft maybe flew a little too close to the sun with some of the stuff because of this mounting deal with Tencent. Nonetheless, it seems like they got it figured out, and that's why they then reported that actually their second quarter net bookings rose 39% to 490.8 million euros, and that exceeded the guidance of around 450 million. They say it was driven by stronger than expected performance across its catalog and a meaningful contribution from TV adaptations of its games. So at least they turned in a good report here, but otherwise it seems like they're just setting everything up behind the scenes for this imminent Tencent deal as they have sort of communicated to their investors. And that's sort of what it is right now. All eyes on Tencent coming in with billion some odd dollars to kind of bail out Ubisoft, but also, I guess, kind of reset them a bit as they're paying off significant debt and then looking towards the future with a massive, massive focus on things like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Division, Rainbow Six, a lot of the live service, quote unquote, stuff that they're really pushing forward with. So I guess right now we'll kind of hang out and wait to see what they have for us with some of these remakes that we already went over, but also this inevitable Tencent deal that seems like it's fully set up now. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time? 57% say no. Okay. 43% say yes. So this is kind of cool because it feels like they'll have a chance to maybe pull in a new audience then for Prince of Persia. I mean, Sands of Time is an iconic game from that PS2, GameCube, Xbox era. They had a nice trilogy going there with that, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones, and I still look back on Sands of Time very, very fondly. It was my favorite of the trilogy. I know people look towards something like Warrior Within. Just something about Sands of Time back then when it first showed up was like really impressive. We were coming off of I'll say the clunkier 2D Prince of Persia games. So in a way, it was kind of like another reboot for the franchise. And here we are now doing it all over again with a remake for the game. So I'm really hoping that because they did care enough to pull it back so that they could work on it, I'm hoping they show up on December 11th and absolutely blow people away and then hit us with the date that's like a month out. So I'm hoping for some exciting stuff, and I guess we'll see at Jeff Keighley's show. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Medallion, who says, yeah, that Final Fantasy VII Remake file size, make sure to get microSD express cards for the holiday. So one of my biggest recommendations this Black Friday, Cyber Monday, when all these deals are happening, look towards storage. Absolutely. I mean, sure, it can be an SD cards. Could be, maybe you need a new NVMe drive for your PC or just a new solid state drive. Those are things that right now people, analysts and stuff are believing that because of all this shortage when it comes to DRAM and inevitably NAND flash will start to go up kind of similar to RAM. RAM is just sort of out in front right now. I have a feeling SSDs and stuff will also be spiking in price, probably going into 2026. So if there are any like upgrades you wanted to make when it comes to storage, or just even extra storage drives to have for future builds or maybe external drives, I would look to maybe take advantage of some of those deals, especially coming up this week and into Cyber Monday. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to hear more about the Xbox 360 and how it launched, some of my memories for it, because we did have the 20th anniversary for that Xbox 360 on Saturday. I did an entire video on that, and I'll leave it right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.